30, the 20, he will score!
To the end zone, down the field, and it is deflected, and gone! Touchdown! A.J. Green!
Over goes back to throw, men are coming late, looks right down the middle, there's Eddie Brown, he has it at the 35 to the 30, he may go, 10-5, touchdown!
Now the Bengals Super Bowl chances rest on his right foot. The kick is up. It is good!
Corey Dillon, he's gone. The knockout punch, you're looking at it. 65 yards. And then back to throw as the blitz is on. Goes long, intended for Collinsworth. He has it down to the 20, touchdown! And Chris Collinsworth.
Throwing the long ball. Deep down the field. Chad Johnson's got it. Touchdown, Cincinnati.
Look at Chase go. Oh my goodness, what a gear he just found. Case for the touchdown. Wow, Chase is on the case.
It is no fluke. It is a fact. The Cincinnati Bengals are headed to Super Bowl 56. The play clock at 3. Shotgun snap. Carr throws into traffic. Intercepted. Jermaine Pratt has the football.
Yeah.
Coffin nails.
Bam, bam, bam. How about that?
Welcome in, Chatterbox Bengals, back again. Happy to be back after missing Sunday's show, but here on a Tuesday, the first happy Tuesday of the year. I know most people do Victory Monday, but here on Chatterbox Bengals, I guess we're going to be doing Victory Tuesdays, and we finally have one under our belt 4 weeks into the season. The Bengals went down to Carolina, took care of business this past Sunday. Craig, you take no days off. You were there. I took a weekend off. You still haven't missed one. We all know the hardest working man at Chatterbox. How you been?
Well, look, Jacob, I mean, I don't think anybody questions my loyalty to Chatterbox and Chatterbox Bengals specifically. You, on the other hand, appreciate you giving us 3 weeks of your time before taking some time
That's right.
off.
Well,
but no, it's good to be back. Good to have a W under our belt. I don't know. I know Reed was talking. We might have to just send you packing and keep Reed on the game day streams from now on. You guys might have to fight it out.
If that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do. I'll give anything for this team to succeed, and if that means stepping away, I'll do it if we have to. But hopefully this week was just a step in the right direction, and things are going to keep rolling. We took the time, we looked through the film, and as we always do on Tuesdays, we have some key plays of the game for you. No questions where this segment starts, an absolute no-brainer when watching this game. The biggest drive of the game, really setting the tone for the whole game, came right at the start. The Panthers drove all the way down the field on the initial drive of the game inside the 1, and the Bengals defense toughened up. Bend, don't break has been the model for Lou Anarumo for years and years. There on first down, you see a run up the middle. The Bengals just stuff it. The D-line continues to play great in short yardage situations right here, which is something, honestly, we haven't seen so far this year. The run game has been something that we've struggled against consistently. And here on the first drive of the game, it looked like, hey, maybe the D-line's going to play really well. Here on second down, a phenomenal play by Dax Hill. One of the best plays of the entire game to knock the ball out of Deontay Johnson's hands. Andy Dalton, great ball placement. Something he's done his entire career. Finding Deontay Johnson in the corner of the end zone, ball in both hands, and Dax Hill just knocks it out. Always important to remember with 23 that this is just his 4th game playing outside corner, and he continues to be somewhat of a reliable option out there. He really does impress when you think about how little time he's spent out there. That Chuba Hubbard runs it up the middle again on third down. And they've gained no yards here on 3 plays against a defense that has been a really, really big worry for Bengals fans everywhere throughout the first 3 weeks of the season. Everyone just doing their job, plugging the holes. Geno Stone helping in the run game, which is something through the first 3 weeks we certainly didn't see a lot of. And then the biggest play, obviously, on any drive is a 4th down stop. And great to see it be made by a rookie. Rookies for the Bengals have not been contributing at a level that you would like them to contribute at, especially as a team trying to win a Super Bowl. And here you see Chris Jenkins with a club on his hand and some of his first action getting a stop on 4th down. Craig, I know I was really excited to see this one just because Chris Jenkins is a guy that if he's able to step up and play really, really well this year, then this defensive line could all of a sudden become not as big of a worry as it has been before. He's a run defense demon, and if he can contribute anything in the pass game, he's going to be a really, really good player for us.
Yeah, Chris Jenkins is going to be key moving forward in this Bengals defensive line until they get Sheldon Rankins back. But even still, I mean, that's why you drafted him, is because of the ability to stop the run. And he's shown that ability so far. I mean, unfortunately, you've had some other pieces on the defensive line that haven't necessarily lived up to expectations so far this year. I mean, right now, the Bengals in yards per play allowed on early downs, meaning first and second down, 5.8 yards per play on early downs. That means that the defensive line is not getting it done on running downs. And ultimately, Trey Hendrickson and now Chris Jenkins, the only 2 Bengals players graded above a 60 on the defensive line out of 8 qualifying players so far on the year. It's not good enough. So let's run it back through real quick. I'll make a couple of quick notes on the goal line stand. This first one, I want you to watch. Chris Jenkins immediately gets in the backfield, moves his man off the line. Logan Wilson able to fill the gap. You'll see it from this end zone look as well. Chris Jenkins lined up over number 50, shifts in, pushes his defender right into the backfield. Logan Wilson fills the gap. Geno Stone flying down the line. You mentioned him helping in run coverage there. He makes 2 good plays on this stand here. In second down, Mingo moves in motion. Bengals are in zone. Dalton chooses to go one-on-one with Deontay Johnson. He had Mingo at the top. He could have gone to with 3 blockers in front. Chose to go with the one-on-one option with Deontay Johnson. Honestly, a veteran move there. He picks on the young corner in Dax Hill, like you said. And Dax Hill, you can see it from that angle, just makes an unbelievable play to poke it out of Deontay Johnson's hand. Now on third down, the Panthers have 10 Panthers in the box here. So the Bengals have a stacked box. Zach Carter actually does a great job on this play. He sheds his block. You'll be able to see it from the other angle. Watch Zach Carter get off his block early on this play on the interior of the defensive line. Zach Carter, number 95 on the left-hand interior there. You'll see he sheds his block really quickly, meets Chuba Hubbard at the line. And again, Geno Stone there able to help clean it up and keep Hubbard out of the end zone. And then you mentioned it, Jenkins with the big push. He'll get a lot of the credit here on this 4th down stop. But I want you to watch Logan Wilson. He helps move the offensive lineman into the backfield as well, gives Jenkins a little bit of help, and then Jenkins able to wrap up Hubbard. So if you run it through, you'll see Logan Wilson come up, make a big push on the offensive line as well, gets Corbett off of his line, allowing Jenkins to make the play. So you'll see it here again. Jenkins moves his man, and then Logan Wilson brings it in and allows Chris Jenkins to clean it up. So just overall, like you said, that whole sequence there, just an absolute tone setter and something that, as a Bengals fan and as a Bengals player has to give you a ton of energy going into that rest of the game. And then obviously they're able to turn around and score and put points on the board early and often in this one. And I do think that defensive stand early on really played a big part on why that was able to happen.
Yeah, this has been a hallmark for Bengals defenses for basically the entire time of this iteration of the Bengals. Is in between the 20s, you're not very good, but once any team gets in the red zone, you're incredible, and you bend and you don't break. And this is something that I necessarily didn't know the Bengals had in them anymore after the first 3 games of the season. So it was great to see to start the game. And I know the Panthers still ended up scoring 24 points, and I know we're going to talk about later in the show how we still have a lot of concerns with different pieces on this defense. But to start this game, really, really a great thing to see for this defense as a whole, just seeing that no matter how bad it might get, they're able to come together and still just button up and really get the job done when it's necessary. Another guy that showed us some great stuff over the weekend outside of just the defense is Chase Brown, someone at the running back position that I know a lot of people have been clamoring for to get more carries, and here we see an early touchdown for the young running back, cutting through a massive hole, which seems to be a hallmark for Chase Brown. He always has the biggest holes when he gets his carries, which I don't know why that's the case, but it certainly helps with his explosion. As you can see here, I mean, folks, take a look at how big that hole is. That guy is clear behind him as Chase Brown falls into the end zone. He's running through untouched in the air as he runs into the end zone, and then a great spike. At first, when I watched this play from this angle, I thought it might have been sped up a little bit. I didn't know if it was in real time. Chase Brown's burst is ridiculous. The way he moves as soon as he gets that football and bursts through the hole is something that I heard Reed say it on Sunday's postgame show. It just looks different. And sometimes there's just not a whole lot more to quantify it than that. I know we have the miles per hour from that screen pass last year that had him as, the second or third fastest ball carrier in the league last year, which is impressive as a rookie, absolutely. But when he gets carries in the backfield, I don't care what the MPH number says on Next Gen Stats. It looks different than almost any other running back in the entire league. The burst and his ability to get around the edge is uncanny, and that is right there is exactly what you see, how it works around the goal line too. When you talk about Chase Brown, we talk about getting him in space and how great he is on the edges with that speed and that burst, but he can use it in short spaces too. He doesn't need all that space like a lot of other slighter frame backs do. I know when we signed Zach Moss, myself included with a lot of Bengals fans, thought that Chase would be, a little scat back, an extra change of pace guy, but it's easy to forget he was a bell cow back at Illinois, and he continues to do stuff like get goal line carries here against the Panthers in week 4, and it's not because Zach Moss hasn't been good, it's just because Chase Brown has looked that much better.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the running back battle a little bit more. There's some guys that really deserve to be called out on this play that I'm going to make you work a little bit here, Jacob. I'm going to make you work a little bit.
All right.
So the first one, you can pause it right there. Look at Eric All. Look at Eric All right there. He's coming in motion from the top of the screen, and he chops Harris on the edge. This is back-to-back weeks now that Eric All has had this chop block on the backside to keep a linebacker from being, or an edge rusher from being able to meet a rusher in the backfield. Eric All, and this is a guy that we've talked about on the show before, and so he deserves the credit. But Eric All's really looking like he may be the tight end of the future. And
Absolutely.
Iowa really pumps out tight ends, and Eric All's looked really great. So I want to call him out real quick for his block. You can see it right here. And we'll play it through a little bit more. But first of all, you can see Kappa. Alex Kappa has his guy absolutely locked up, completely turned to seal off the gap. Unbelievable block there. Ted Karras is able to get to the second level. He's able to pick up Shaq Thompson one-on-one and seal off the hole on the other side. All three of those guys really make this happen. And it really ultimately opens up that giant hole. And like you said, Chase Brown is absolutely explosive and beats through the hole. Now, we're going to talk about this guy a little bit more down the road. So go ahead and play it. I don't want to spend too much time on it in particular, but you'll see from the other side. I do want you to watch Amarius Mims. He gets absolutely blown off the ball on this one by Jadeveon Clowney, which Jadeveon Clowney has been doing this a long time, beating a rookie one-on-one. Not a huge surprise, but the fact that Chase Brown has that explosiveness is exactly why we're not talking about Amarius Mims missing that block. Because Chase Brown's able to get through that hole so quickly, Jadeveon Clowney doesn't have the time
That's right.
to get into the backfield and get Chase Brown before he's able to hit the hole. So, look, Amarius Mims, a little bit of a mixed bag over the weekend. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But ultimately, Chase Brown and that explosiveness really allows him to hit that hole that was opened up by Ted Karras and by Alex Kappa. Alex Kappa graded unbelievably in this game.
Yeah.
So wanted to make sure we gave him a chance to get shouted out there before we got too long.
Amarius Mims, I did, and I know we have a cut up coming in a second, but he played very well, but he's definitely going to make mistakes as a young player who hasn't started many games, and that's why having a running back with the kind of burst Chase Brown has shown that can overcome some of those slip-ups, like you saw right there on the goal line with Jadeveon Clowney beating him right across his face, It didn't matter because Chase Brown got through the hole in record time. So it's the little things like that that are going to continue to help him grow at that right tackle position where he can slip up every now and then. And whether it's Chase Brown or Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase making a crazy play that can allow him to recover, that's going to allow him to get even more comfortable out there. And here's kind of, Amarius Mims not exactly at fault at this play, but this is kind of exactly what I'm talking about. And it was great to see from Joe Burrow this weekend the ability to move, because it's something that I know a lot of people don't necessarily attribute to Joe Burrow, but it's something he really is great at. So always scrambling with his eyes downfield, one of the most elusive quarterbacks in the pocket in the entire league, running around and finding Zach Moss in the flat, and Zach Moss turning it into about a 20-yard gain. That's a great catch and run for Zach Moss. It would have been very easy for him to get lost in space there, not know where he is on the field, and not gain nearly as many yards as were available, but he took full advantage. And that's after picking up a great block in pass pro. Joe Burrow making a lot of great guys miss. We just talked about how long Jadeveon Clowney has been terrorizing this league, and there's Joe Burrow making him miss in the backfield. This is a guy that never is in the conversation as a dual-threat quarterback or a runner, and that's rightfully so. He certainly doesn't run with the guys at the top of the league, but I think his ability to scramble while throwing, running to throw, is super underrated and something that certainly saves this Bengals team a lot over the last few years with poor O-line play, which has not been the case this year so far, but obviously something great to have in his back pocket when necessary.
Yeah, I think it's really important to put a little bit of context behind this play too. Not only obviously Burrow scrambling, picking up the first down is important, but this is 3rd and 5 right after the Panthers score a touchdown to make it 31-21. Okay, so the Panthers trying to get a little bit of momentum. Their defense has the Bengals back on their heels a little bit, 3rd and 5. And what does Joe Burrow do? He does what Joe Burrow does. He scrambles around, picks up the first down. Again, I'm going to make you work. I want you to go back to the replay. I pause it real quick before we even get going. All right. I want you to watch Zach Moss, and we're going to talk about the running back battle. But this play is an exact reason why Zach Moss has to be part of the rotation. I want you to watch Zach Moss. He's lined up right behind the line, just to the left of center. You're going to see this. He's responsible here for picking up 6'5", 308-pound Jaden Peavy. Okay, 6'5", 308 going up against Zach Moss. Go ahead and roll it. And Zach Moss is going to absolutely stop Peavy in his tracks. Just stops him right there. Okay, so Zach Moss, a running back, picking up a D tackle at 308 shouldn't happen. So first and foremost, wanted to call that one out. Now from the back end, you're going to see a couple of things. Karras and Kappa get tangled up here. Clowney obviously takes advantages and he goes inside and flushes Burrow up in the pocket. But Kappa's not going to give up. So Kappa continues to fight, blocks Jadeveon Clowney, re-engages him, gives Burrow that space to scramble away, and then find Chase Brown, who sneaks out of the backfield for that 20-yard pickup. So Chase Brown, again, that pickup at the line and that pass protection there, Zach Moss, sorry, is exactly why he needs. What did I say?
You said Zach Moss the first time, and then you said Chase Brown, then you said Chase Moss.
Okay,
you got them all in there.
Listen, I'm just trying to get everybody their respect. Okay?
That's right.
Zach Moss has to be in the rotation, and that pass protection is a really good example of why. The veteran move, first of all, he picks up the defensive tackle in Jaden Peavy, who should, quite frankly, be a little bit ashamed of himself after that play when they watch it in the film room. But then second of all, the awareness afterwards. If you watched it, he was still there in pass pro for a solid several seconds before he actually snaked out and was able to get out for that catch. So a lot of credit obviously goes to Burrow, but a lot of pieces, as always, make up the play and make things like that possible. And so huge shout out to Zach Moss with that blitz pickup and being able to handle a 6'5", 308-pound defensive tackle.
Absolutely, and that's what I've said continuously with Zach Moss. Everyone likes to point to Chase Brown as the guy that needs to be in there on passing downs because of how great he is with the ball in his hands as that check down guy. And while that's absolutely correct, there might not be a better pass blocking running back in the league than Zach Moss. So exactly stuff like that, picking up a D lineman in the middle, that's why he has to be in there. Changing the order up a little bit on you, Craig, here. We're stick on the offensive side of the ball with a great pass from Burrow to Yoshivas. So only one catch on the day for Andre Yoshivas, a guy that I think we all still just want a little bit more out of. But here, a great play by him to just attack that middle seam of the defense against cover 2. That really is a great play. Sadly, only one angle here, but Andrei Iosivas lined up right there in the right at the bottom of the logo in the slot at the bottom of your screen, and he just runs straight up the hash across the corner's face and into the middle of the defense. And Joe Burrow throws a great ball into a tight window to get Iosivas for, what is that, 35 yards, 30 yards? That's a great play.
Keep it running. Keep it running.
It's going back. It's coming back.
Keep it running. All right. Couple things that are important. You can see Burrow here. He's motioning. We've heard it time and time again that the Bengals oftentimes will call 2 plays and give Burrow the opportunity to make a decision on which one is going to be the best play in that scenario. He reads the 2 high safeties, 2 deep look out of the Carolina Panthers. They actually have a third safety who's up in the box. So I'm assuming that this was one of the options out of the huddle. But even if it wasn't, if he audibled to this, either way, hats off to Joe Burrow for recognizing the defense and moving into this play. The other thing is that ultimately it's a great play concept, right? Yes, we're talking about Iosivas tackling the middle of the field, but it's all possible because Jamar Chase on the top of your screen and T. Higgins on the bottom of your screen are also running verticals. This is a 3 vertical look going against that 2 high safety look. And so what it does is it forces the safeties to focus on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. And you can see as soon as the ball is snapped, they start to move outward and deeper. And so Joe Burrow is going to use his eyes. He's going to move the safeties towards Jamar Chase. He's going to look back and he's going to see a wide open gap for Andrei Iosivas, who's beat his man off the line. Shout out to Andrei Iosivas for beating the man there. But again, Burrow audibling into that play, or at least choosing that play as an option. Yoshi, triple verticals there, beating his man right off the line. Just all around good play design, good play option in that scenario. And most importantly, an amazing ball by Burrow and a great job by Andrei Iosivas to take that hit and to hang on to the ball in a high-pressure situation.
It's the flashes on plays like this that get Bengals fans so optimistic that he could take that legitimate big step now to being a major piece of this offense in the receiving core. He's still just... He capitalizes on a lot of red zone opportunities, and that's phenomenal. And he's good for probably one big play like this a game, but it doesn't seem like you can rely on him for much more than that at this point. And that's why all these flashes on great routes, beating guys off the line, finding open space, getting open in confined spaces in the red zone are a little bit frustrating sometimes because you wonder where it goes other times because he does look great. He looks like one of the all-time steals, getting him so late in the draft at some points, and at some points he's just completely erased out there on the field. So if he can find some sort of level of consistency, he really could turn into a really important piece to this team. And as I know we're going to talk about tomorrow when we talk about Bengals drafting, hitting on guys late in the draft is so crucial. And if you can get a weapon on offense at a skill position in those late rounds like Andrei Iosivas, and he can be what he's shown flashes that he can be, that would be so phenomenal for a Bengals team that's already in a tough spot when it comes to paying players on the offensive side of the ball. Top 10 in offensive spending, outside the top 20 on defense, and it's starting to show a little bit with how great the offense is and how much the defense is starting to struggle. So finding cheaper options on the offensive side of the ball is super important. A cheaper option they found on defense was bringing Von Bell back home. They're paying him the vet minimum now after the Panthers cut him, and he made a great play on Sunday. We're going to talk about it later, how much he's playing and how we feel about it, but at this moment, it's time to give credit to Von Bell. I know this is a Trey Hendrickson play, but I'm going to start by giving credit to Von Bell for being in the right place at the right time, catching a ball that drops out of the sky, and making a pretty good return on it. Kudos to him for finding some open space and getting some great return, but as we go to the back end angle, you're going to see that this is a Trey Hendrickson play. Lined up on the left side of your screen, he's edge rushing against the left tackle of the Panthers, Ike Ekwonu, a rookie a few years ago who's just never really found footing in the NFL. And Trey Hendrickson just beats him off the line so easily beats him off the line, and is able to hit Andy Dalton's hand as he cocks the ball back, firing the ball straight up into the air. I mean, the length on Trey Hendrickson here to get that arm out and reach out and have the wherewithal to realize that he's not going to get to Dalton and he has to make a play on the ball, and he does, to chop down with the lineman's hands on your shoulder, to chop down on that ball, pop it in the air and force a turnover for your defense. is just absolutely incredible. And that's why Trey Hendrickson is so important to this team. And as I know we're going to talk about later in this show, and especially a little bit more on Thursday as we preview Week 5, he is on that injury report. And we don't know if he's going to play against the Ravens this week. And that would be such a major loss for the Bengals because he is, without a shadow of a doubt, one bright spot on what hasn't been a very great defense so far. And there's another play, an interception, basically. I know we won't get the credit on the stat sheet, but an interception for a defensive end. That's a great play forced by Trey Hendrickson, and exactly why when everyone says that he's the thing that makes this Bengals defense go, they're not wrong. He absolutely is. He's the one bright spot and something that the Bengals absolutely need to keep on the field if they want to have any chance of winning anything this year.
Yeah, so the interesting part about this play here to me is that we've talked a lot this season about the Bengals needing to be creative on the defensive side of the ball because of the lack of skill, if we're being honest, especially in the front four, right? So what they do here is really interesting to me. They're clearly showing blitz. They have Logan Wilson and Joseph Asai on the right-hand side of the ball who are going to drop back into coverage, and you're going to see 5 different Bengals rushing on the left-hand side of the line, including Mike Hilton, who comes in. Now, if Mike Hilton's not blitzing here, the Panthers do a pretty good job of picking up the blitz, if we're being honest. But what Mike Hilton blitzing does is it forces Miles Sanders to pick him up in pass protection instead of being able to chip on Trey Hendrickson or help out on that. And so it opens up an opportunity for Trey Hendrickson to be able to get home one-on-one instead of having that help that he may have been looking for if the Bengals hadn't been so creative. So when you run it through, you'll see the 2 defenders on the right-hand side of the screen are both going to drop out. And then you're going to see 4 Bengals rushing, and then Mike Hilton come in as well, and he's rushing from the backside. So you've got an opportunity there where, okay, if Miles Sanders goes out into a route, well, Mike Hilton's got a free shot at Andy Dalton. Miles Sanders doesn't. He picks him up. Trey Hendrickson able to go one-on-one. And as you mentioned, Ekwonu, not exactly top left tackle in the league by any means, but an amazing play by Trey Hendrickson to beat the one-on-one coverage. And again, Von Bell in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely, and that's what you need Trey Hendrickson to do. When you have a dominant edge rusher on your team and you're going up against a lackluster offensive line, or at least a lackluster player in Ike Ekwonu, you have to be able to dominate. That's what great players do, and he absolutely did this weekend. We have our own young tackle, and he looked pretty good. He looked pretty good against the Panthers this weekend. Here is about 55 seconds of Amarius Mims this weekend, starting at right tackle for the Bengals against the Panthers. Craig, feel free to butt in as much as you would like. He's going to be highlighted here on basically every single play. Here against Jadeveon Clowney, putting him on the ground. A great play to throw him on the ground. Here, again, pushing him upfield. Craig, I can run that back if you'd like from the start.
Well, I just think the first 2 plays both are very similar. Amarius Mims has had the ability, Jadeveon Clowney tries to go outside on him, and he just uses Jadeveon Clowney's momentum to his advantage, which is a key skill of an offensive lineman to begin with. Like, I'm not trying to downplay it by any means. I think the being able to take advantage of a player who's, trying to take advantage of you and use their attack against them is certainly a huge benefit. So, I think what we're going to see out of Amarius Mims is a lot of really positives. I mean, huge pick up there, obviously. No pressure out of Clowney at all. That one, same thing. Clowney tries to bull rush. I think the thing that stood out to me is that Amarius Mims is not going to get bull rushed.
Right.
He, without a doubt, has to improve in terms of his side-to-side speed and certainly needs to get off the ball quicker, especially on run blocking. There's another video out on social media as this one continues to play. I don't know if you saw it or not. There's a video out there. It's Chase Brown's all 15 of his carries. And I went through and watched that. Mims got beat on probably 4 of them. So he certainly had, and again, you saw it there at the end, Mims probably responsible for that interception as Jadeveon Clowney beats him on the inside on that. So there's a lot of work to be done. But I think the thing about it is that you have to be really hopeful about what you're seeing out of the young stud really early on in his career. You got to remember he's a game and a half into it, right?
Yeah.
And so being able to go man on man with Jadeveon Clowney for a majority of the snaps is really, really intriguing and impressive. And one of the things that stands out now that we're four weeks into the season, I don't know if you know this or not, Jacob. I didn't actually see it on social. I just saw it when I was doing some research. But the Cincinnati Bengals lead the NFL in QB pressure rate this year at 19.5%. Lead the NFL. The next best, the Kansas City Chiefs, at 24.1. So not only are they protecting Joe Burrow at an astronomical rate, significantly better than anybody else, but I do think that there's something to be said for the types of passes that we're seeing out of this Bengals offense. And it's been similar to how it's been for Zach Taylor for a couple of years now, so I don't think it's necessarily a surprise. But when we talk about Joe Burrow taking shots, he times it up properly, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of us would love to see deep bombs every drive and see us pick up chunks every single time. But when you've got an offensive line who is protecting you at a rate better than anybody else in the league, it gives you opportunities in the right moments to take those shots. And so I thought it was really intriguing to see that when I was doing my research. This past week was the fourth time that Joe Burrow wasn't sacked in a game in his career, and just the first since week 3 of 2021.
Wow.
So this offensive line that, certainly many thought had the opportunity to be a strength has really come out this season and shown out so far and really been a strength. Now, I still have concerns about depth without a question across the offensive line. But if this offensive line can stay healthy, they've got a real opportunity to do something special with Joe Burrow this year.
Bengals updated depth chart for week 5. Just speaking on that depth, it was Ted Karras, the center, Matt Lee backing him up. Left side of the O-line backed up by Cody Ford. Right side of the O-line backed up by Jackson Kirkland. That's not very pretty. We really can't afford any injuries on this offensive line, but as long as they're going to be healthy and play like this, I'm going to choose not to worry about it, because I think there's enough to worry about with this Bengals team right now that as long as this O-line unit's playing well, I'll worry about those injuries if and when they hopefully don't come. But Amarius Mims playing against Jadeveon Clowney most of the day on Sunday and really putting together an overall pretty solid game. It was great to see as a Bengals fan, because how many times over Jadeveon Clowney's, journeyman career, when he's ended up in the AFC North or on the Bengals schedule seemingly every year, has he terrorized that right side of the Bengals offensive line? And he really wasn't as much of a factor in the game on Sunday. And that was great to see, and to know he's matched up with our first-round rookie when our last few first-round picks haven't been able to make an immediate impact on the team. It certainly seemed like Amarius Mims already is in his second start. So it's really just reassuring to see, when we've already talked a lot about how the Bengals have failed to hit on guys that can make immediate impacts in the draft. He seems like one that is able to, and at least help this offense stay at the level where we've said it time and time again. You got to score 30 points in order to win. It seems he's going to help Joe Burrow stay up and stay clean, which is so crucial to getting that done. And going back to what you said, the 0 sacks is exactly why, but I think it's nice to talk about just here even briefly how good Joe Burrow's been over the last few weeks, because he's been great.
Yeah, he really has been. And I think just to kind of touch on again what we talked about before is that, one of the things that Joe Burrow has always done is utilize his legs. And it's not something that you hope that he has to do very often, obviously. Right. But when he does, he gives you such a opportunity that you don't have to be perfect. Right. And when you have a young guy playing right tackle every day now, it's comforting to know that you don't have to be perfect, and that your quarterback can take care of you just like you need to take care of your quarterback. So, it's certainly been an interesting development. And again, when you're talking about a guy with wrist injury who after the first couple of weeks we were worried, is this going to be the Burrow of old, or are we going to be, stuck to whatever? He's looked really, really good.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I wanted to put it on here. And some people might click on the show. You see Joe is great on the ticker, and you're like, oh, of course, it's just, Bengals fans talking about how great their quarterback is. What's new? But we sat here after week 1, and we were legitimately worried about the future of this organization, because we didn't know if he was healthy or if he was going to be back to the Joe Burrow that he was before. And he is, and he's shown that over multiple weeks now. And that's just so reassuring to Bengals fans, because if he wasn't what he's proven to be back to, then who knows where we would be headed. And it's great to have that thought out of our mind at this point, and that it was just another slow start, and how that's an issue in and of itself, but it's a bigger issue. And that's the most important thing, because at the end of the day, after week 1, when both sides of the ball and basically all 44 players, kickers and special teams, everyone on the field looked pretty bad. We were all worried about Joe, number one. And now through 4 weeks, there's other things to worry about. He is nowhere near that list. And that is really just a great thing. We saw it on that scramble play that he's back to even Joe of old, it seems. That's a play that he wasn't even necessarily making it in the last few years, running around in the back pocket. That's stuff that we saw in that Super Bowl run, evading from Chris Jones as a rookie, and even at LSU, running around in the backfield. That's really, really great to see him getting more comfortable back there, relying on his arm, taking those deep shots. And I think part of him being back and reassuring everyone that he's so great is Jamar Chase getting comfortable again and making plays. I mean, we got another historic screenshot added to the archives of Jamar Chase touchdowns with 9 defenders in frame around him. It's just incredible what these guys can do. And we've, when you're bad in the league when the period that the Bengals were bad in, we talk about hitting in the mid rounds when you're competing for a Super Bowl. But when you're bad and you're picking at the top of the draft, hitting on those players is the most important thing in the world. People act like it's easy. If you're picking number 1, of course you get a good player. Well, how many times do we talk about busted quarterbacks or, drafting an O-lineman that doesn't pan out? I know we talk about it with the Bengals plenty. You took John Ross at 9. You think you're picking top 10, you'd have an easy layup, and that certainly didn't work out. But the Bengals picked top 5 2 years in a row, and they delivered 2 years in a row with 2 generational talents, and it built the franchise up to a point where it's never been before. And it's great to see those guys continue to play at the level that they've shown before, because that's what we've paid one of them, and hopefully soon paying the other one to do. And when you draft guys that deliver and you reward them for delivering, that's a good way to operate as an organization.
Yeah, one of the stats that I love about Joe Burrow. So this year so far, he's been blitzed on 29.3% of his dropbacks. Okay, on those dropbacks, he's 31 of 40 for a 77.5% completion percentage for 384 yards and 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 9.6 yards per attempt when he's blitzed. Like we kind of jokingly with the whole Joe Cool thing, but being cool under pressure is a key part of being an NFL quarterback. And there are many quarterbacks who do not have that ability to stay cool under pressure. And Joe Burrow, time and time again, has shown that he does have that ability to stay calm under pressure, beat the blitz, whether it's finding the open man or it's him scrambling like we saw there. He's always giving the offense a little bit extra just to be able to beat that situation. So it's nice to have 9 back and to have him behind under center, and hopefully it stays that way for a long, long time.
That's right. Big test this week against the Ravens. It's nice to say the offense is back and looking great, but it's also important to remember we've played the Commanders and the Panthers the last 2 weeks. So a big test this week against the Ravens team that's really looking like they're coming into form, especially after a dominant win against Buffalo. But a position group that looks like it's coming into form for the Bengals is the running back room. After week 1, where the running game struggled a lot and Joe Mixon went for 150-plus yards, there were a lot of people really MFing the Bengals front office for letting him go, and the plans to replace him not looking like they worked out. Well, now through 4 weeks, it's looking pretty good. This running back room looks like they found something and really seemed like they struck gold with 2 guys that complement each other perfectly. Chase Brown has done so much that we're now asking him to be the lead back and take all the carries. It seems like most Bengals fans want him to be out there for almost all the snaps. And it's not because Zach Moss has played poorly. Zach Moss has played very well, doing everything we ask him to do. Chase Brown just looks so good that you want a young guy in there. And I understand most Bengals fans asking that, but we talked about this through highlights of both of them. They both provide such unique skill sets that are both so crucial to how this offense wants to look that they both need snaps. 30 carries to running backs in a game, 15 going to Zach Moss, 15 going to Chase Brown. That is perfect. These guys work great off each other. And as they continue to get their feet wet in this offense, get more comfortable behind what seems to be the best O-line the Bengals have had in a long, long time, as Joe continues to get more comfortable stretching the defense deep and people keep respecting T. Higgins, who really had his first game of the year this week, a real no-show against Washington, and then having a great game this weekend against the Panthers. As they respect those outside weapons more and more and more, it's going to become even easier to run the ball. And the Bengals look like one of the best rushing teams in the NFL right now already. I'm very, very excited about this rushing attack. I'm very, very excited about this running back room. I'm excited to see how they're both going to grow in their unique roles. And I would be lying if I said I was still Team Zach Moss. I want to see as much Chase Brown as I can now because he's a lot of fun.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how the Bengals move forward. Through the first 3 weeks, Zach Moss had seen 131 snaps versus Chase Brown's 45 snaps. In week 4, Zach Moss saw 60% of the snaps and Chase Brown saw 40% of the snaps. Now, on Chase Brown's 27 snaps, he touched the ball 18 times.
Yep.
He had 3 targets in the passing game plus the 15 carries. So when he's in the game, he's touching the ball a lot, which will be interesting to see how the Bengals utilize that moving forward, if that'll continue to be the trend or not. What was interesting to me that I think I don't necessarily have a ton of clarity on is in a game last week where it was kind of a shootout and you were throwing the ball a lot, Chase Brown only saw 15 snaps.
Right.
And it became kind of a little bit of a question of, okay, you've got this potential weapon out of the backfield to catch the ball in open space and maybe make something happen. You didn't really get a whole lot of opportunities. Now, obviously, Zach Moss showed this week with the pass protection and what he's able to bring there, and we talked about that earlier in the show, that certainly there's value in him bringing in the passing game, and I don't want to downplay that at all. And you said it, but I just want to reiterate that this isn't necessarily about Zach Moss not fulfilling his potential. It's just about Chase Brown seemingly showing another level. And, you can put whatever credit you want towards PFF grades and all of these things, but at the end of the day, they're the only one that does elusiveness grading. And Zach Moss on the season so far has an elusiveness grade of 41.7. Chase Brown, on the other hand, 75.9. He not only is he explosive, but he makes guys miss. He avoids tackles. He does a lot, especially when you get him into the open field. Now, when I was doing the Amarius Mims research, one thing did stick out to me that I don't necessarily have a big take on just yet, but it certainly stuck out. Chase Brown this past week in week 4, when rushing to the right behind Amarius Mims, 7 carries, 18 yards, 2.5 yards per carry. When he rushed to the left behind Orlando Brown, 8 carries, 62 yards, 7.75. Now, if you take away the 2 touchdowns that Chase Brown probably would have added significantly more yards to, maybe that's a little bit different. When 2 of your carries are for 2 or 3 yards or whatever it was on the second touchdown, that'll lower that average for sure. But, at the end of the day, this offensive line is performing. It's opening up holes. You touched on it during the video breakdown. And Chase Brown has the explosiveness to hit that hole and to make guys miss once he does. And so, I think this Bengals coaching staff is probably still working on putting some plays into this system that really play to his strengths. I wouldn't be shocked to see his role continue to expand as the season progresses. Doesn't mean that Zach Moss's role will decrease. It just means that Zach Moss or Chase Brown will have more opportunities in moments that matter.
I don't know that Chase Brown should ever outsnap Zach Moss, but I do like the philosophy of when he's in there, get him the touches. When he's not touching the ball, let's use Zach Moss for the other stuff. And I think that's a super smart way for the Bengals to operate while we're on the running back battle. I know this is a passing stat, but important to continue to give credit to the offensive line when they play well, because not a lot of people do. When the offensive passing game looks great, you talk about Joe Burrow and Jamar. When the run game looks great, you talk about the running backs, and it's never the offensive line getting credit. I love that you pointed out Alex Kappa in the other one, because he had a great game on Sunday, the highest graded Bengals player on offense, and he's really put together a great season so far. But the guy that was my MVP when I was asked a few weeks ago about the Bengals offense, and I think at this point he might still be, it's Orlando Brown. He's been nothing short of spectacular this year for the Bengals. They signed him to be a no-doubt eraser at left tackle, and he's delivered, and he continues to deliver. Pass block win rate leaders this season at tackle: Ronnie Stanley, number 1, Lane Johnson, number 2, our guy Orlando Brown, number 3. When you go out and attack the free agency market and you go drop a big contract on a left tackle, that's what you expect. You expect him to be a top 5 guy. And I know that's a big expectation, but he's delivering, and that's great. And he's a captain of the team now. We see him in every social clip. He's a great guy to have in the locker room. He's a great guy to have on the offensive line playing in between the white lines. Just a massive shout out to Orlando Brown for what he's been since he's gotten to Cincinnati, because it's been great. And we talk about how you have to hit on the draft, how you have to hit on free agents. Spending that much money on a tackle and whiffing would have put this organization in a very bad spot. Not that I was ever worried about that, but that's just the reality of the situation when you already have paid so many guys big contracts. Going out and spending big money in free agency, you have to hit. And the Bengals hit on Orlando Brown. He's looked phenomenal so far, and that's really, really good to see.
Yeah, I found it interesting, and the PFF updates their grades after they go back and rewatch film and do a lot of things. But when they released their initial live gradings as the game was happening, 4 of the top 5 graded players were offensive linemen: Alex Kappa, then Joe Burrow, then Cordell Volson, Orlando Brown Jr., and Amarius Mims.
That's all I've ever wanted.
That's
all I've ever wanted.
I don't think you can ask for a whole lot more out of your offensive line than to be some of the best performing players on your team.
That's right.
I think it's crazy. And the fact that Joe Burrow was able to be as successful as he was the first couple of years of his career without an O-line.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing now what he can do with an O-line. And I think that's something that I think this entire league should really be afraid of. I mean, the Bengals have now scored the second most points in the AFC this year. I mean, and I don't think that that's going to change a whole lot. It's really impressive to see.
Absolutely. And this is something that goes back to ownership as well. I mean, Bengals ownership has been killed for decades on decades for being cheap, but the Bengals made the Super Bowl with a very, very poor O-line, and Joe Burrow had faced injury concerns, and they poured more capital into the offensive line than maybe any team in the entire NFL. Free agents basically from left to right, and then a first-round pick to back up at right tackle. Obviously already lost Trent Brown for the season, so Mims is in there, but a first-round pick and 3 major free agents, 4 if you include Trent Brown, at the offensive line to protect Joe Burrow, and what I think everyone unanimously agrees is your best chance to win a Super Bowl with the current players on this roster. That's called recognizing a problem and going out and trying to get solutions. And that's something the Bengals front office hasn't necessarily done forever, and it's something that they continue to do very, very well with this iteration of the Bengals. They know what they have, and they're attacking it. The old Bengals front office is out. The new Bengals front office is in, and they're doing what they need to do to continue to win. And I think that's what leads us to our second point, or our next point about the defense is what is there that their week can do. Obviously a much better game this weekend against the Panthers, but still 24 points to Andy Dalton and that Panthers offense, which I know they looked good the week before in his first start, but this is a team that is not very good. And the defense, yet again, tackling problems, coverage problems, just more problems than answers in a week where I really hoped that I was going to get a lot more confidence in a lot of guys on this defense. I lost confidence in a lot of the few guys I did have confidence in. Talking about Cam Taylor-Britt, of course, right off the rip, Craig. I'll let you start with the defense. I know there were some good, but a lot of bad as well. You can kind of take it whatever direction you'd like.
Where to start? Look, I mean, Lou Anarumo summed it up to the other day. Called Cam Taylor-Britt's play erratic, which was interesting. The other piece that was interesting to me that I think some other people caught on too. But he said, if you're not playing well, I'm going to put someone else in that will. Are you going to do that anywhere else? Because I hate to break it to you, but you got a number of guys who aren't playing very well. Look, Cam Taylor-Britt had a rough day, and I watched some of the film. I don't know if it's miscommunication on the back end with the safeties. I don't know if it's just Cam Taylor-Britt relying too much on the safeties. And utilizing that to jump routes or his guessing. I talked about this after the game a little bit, but the touchdown that he gave up when I watched it, right? It's a double move. Deontay Johnson kind of fakes like he's going to run a corner route and then breaks it back to the post. Cam Taylor-Britt breaks across the front of Deontay Johnson like he's going to be running a crossing route. And then by the time the ball gets to Deontay Johnson, Johnson's 3 yards past Cam Taylor-Britt in the end zone.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to figure out where the breakdown is happening. And I think as a corner, there's a certain level of confidence that you have to have without a doubt. But for me, the biggest thing that a corner can have is reaction time, right? He has to be able to react to the wide receiver almost instantaneously. And if you're spending time guessing what the wide receiver is going to be doing instead of reacting, then you're going to be left in a hole, and that wide receiver is going to burn you. And we saw it time and time again where Cam Taylor-Britt just got burned over and over again, and it just not a good look. And look, I mean, Lou Anarumo said that him and Cam Taylor-Britt hugged it out afterwards, said this blank won't ever happen again, but
let's cover next time. Thanks.
Let's actually do our job, and let's stop trying to think that we're smarter than the offense and know that what they're going to run, when in the reality of it is that this is 3 straight weeks that you've gotten burned deep on deep balls.
And that's the point I wanted to make. I saw people tweeting stats and various numbers. I don't know where they're getting them, that this is the first game Cam Taylor-Britt has allowed a deep ball. I saw a stat that he had 0 yards allowed against the Kansas City Chiefs. I saw Rashee Wright run past him for a touchdown. I watched it with my 2 eyes. To act like he's been this eraser so far this year, Terry McLaurin did the same thing on Monday night. To act like he's been some eraser all year and this is one blip on the radar is honestly just not true. He's had errors and hiccups all year long, which have honestly been masked by one superhuman interception that everyone has pointed to when talking about Cam Taylor-Britt's year. And it was an incredible play, no doubt about it, but he has struggled this year. I see a lot of people in the chat saying, Cam will be fine, just relax. I'm not all the way off the deep end on Cam Taylor-Britt. I think he's going to be a very, very good player for us. I still have faith that maybe he can take a step to be a number 1 corner at some point in the near future. But I think the thought process a lot of Bengals fans, myself included, had going into this season that we had a number 1 corner was just false. He's not there yet. Hopefully he will be soon. Do I think he can get there? For sure. But I don't think he's there yet. There's too many bumps in the road. And if he can show blips of being a cornerback 1, then maybe that'll be enough for the secondary to be great. Maybe that'll be enough for him to be a really, really good corner, but he's just not quite all the way there yet as a true shutdown corner in this league, and I think that is okay. He's not a first-round pick. He wasn't some, ironclad prospect. He's a guy who honestly has been quite a great surprise over the last few years to what he's become and the hope that a lot of us have in him. So as long as he can keep improving and won't have games like this one over and over again, then we're going to be okay, and Cam's going to continue to be a big part of this defense. But I asked the guys this morning on Off the Bench, preseason, if you asked Bengals fans to draft the defense, Cam Taylor-Britt goes no lower than 2 or 3? Yeah, I was going to say Trey 1 and then maybe Logan Wilson.
Logan Wilson, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a guy that everyone has faith in, and I don't think anyone is going to be out on him after one bad game, but certainly something that I think is going to have Bengals fans have to recalibrate a little bit in their heads that he's just not all the way there yet as a number 1.
Well, so I said this after the game, and I still believe this. My concern is that the Panthers exposed him. And I feel like the first 3 weeks he got some respect in terms of potentially being kind of that top corner,
Yeah.
and whether it was the Kansas City interception or whether it was just in general they felt like he was a quality corner, I don't know. But the Panthers very clearly exposed him, and whoever said that he hadn't given up a deep ball is crazy.
Yeah.
The last 3 weeks, PFF kind of, they do target defense. So in week 2 against Kansas City, he was credited for 2 completions on 4 targets for 50 yards with a long of 44. Last week, he was credited for 1 completion on 2 attempts for 55 yards. Obviously, the 55-yard touchdown to McLaurin. This week, 5 completions on 6 targets for 84 yards, including a 39-yard long. Like,
Yeah.
it's not good enough. And like Xavier Leggett shouldn't be going 3 for 3 for 24 yards against you. Now, here's a couple things that I'll give him a little bit of credit on that I don't know how to read into a little too much right now. Xavier Leggett, yards after catch, -1 yard. Deontay Johnson, yards after catch, 10 yards. So, like, he's there, I guess, maybe.
You want a cookie?
But, like, the Terry McLaurin yards after catch being 5 yards, yeah, because he was in the end zone. Deontay Johnson having 10 yards after catch, yeah, because he was in the end zone. Like, I don't know. The Rashee Rice 44-yard touchdown, yeah, 7 yards after catch because he was in the end zone. So I don't know how to read into it. What I do know is that Cam Taylor-Britt over the last 3 weeks having 8 completions on 12 targets is not going to get it done. And for your number one corner, it's time to look in the mirror a little bit, figure out what do I need to do, how do I change this up?
Yeah.
Because right now it's not working. So we'll see what Lou Anarumo does and if he makes any adjustments on that, and we'll see what happens.
I'm not going to beat a dead horse with the last topic I want to talk about on defense, but the run defense has been terrible, and I think the only thing that we can cross our fingers and pray for now is that health is going to fix this, and when BJ Hill and Sheldon Rankins come back and Chris Jenkins gets a club off and McKinley Jackson gets his knee healthy, that this run defense is going to become maybe a little worse than league average, and that's what we can hope for. But Chuba Hubbard, 5.8 yards per carry. Miles Sanders, the ghost of Miles Sanders, as Reed said, 5.3 yards per carry. Xavier Leggett, 5 yards per carry. And even Andy Dalton, 3 yards per carry. Look at that, everyone getting in on the action. It was just, no matter what they did, if you hand the ball off, they were able to get a chunk play. And it was honestly just the Bengals offense not missing a beat the entire game, which is why they were able to just take control of this game and never give it back, because the defense really didn't stop the Panthers a whole lot. Stopping them on the 1-inch yard line 3 times is what saved this game. That's what saved this defense's stat line. Otherwise, we're looking at another game where they've given up over 30 points to a lackluster offense. Well, honestly, hindsight, maybe that Commanders offense is pretty dang good, but I think that might be a story for a different day. But it's still not pretty on the defensive line. We need different guys to step up. We need an infusion of talent, and hopefully the guys that are on injured reserve are enough talent to make that happen. But when Lawrence Guy is playing as much as he is, that's going to be a problem for the Bengals defense, considering he got here a week and a half ago.
Well, I mentioned it earlier in the show that the Bengals defense is 27th in the NFL in yards per play on early downs, first and second down at 5.8. Guess who's number 1 in the NFL in yards per play on early downs on offense?
Yeah, it's the Ravens.
Yeah, it'd be the Ravens at 6.9 yards per play. So this will be an interesting matchup for sure. And look, it's on the pass rush and on the run defense. Zach Carter's got to be better.
Oh,
I mean, Zach Carter, I saw from Gridiron Grading, who we're going to talk to tomorrow a little bit, but after 4 weeks, ranks 113 out of 113 qualified interior defensive linemen with a pass rush win rate of
goose eggs.
0.0. Yep. He's one of only 39 guys who have 80 pass rush snaps, and the only one with 0 pass rush wins. It's just not good enough, and it's not getting done. And that's a guy who, again, because of injuries and otherwise, had to play 54% of your snaps this week. And that's not really a winning combination right now when when he's playing 54% of snaps. Lawrence Guy, you mentioned 43% of snaps. Jay Tefeli is getting 41% of snaps. Like right now, it's just, you're plugging and playing a little bit.
Yeah.
The one thing that'll be interesting to see, like Chris Jenkins only played 31% of the snaps. Now Baltimore is going to run the ball a little bit more than Carolina did. So will we see more of him this week? I would expect so, but I don't know for sure. They did experiment a little bit more this week with Sept Johnson, who we asked to see.
Yep.
But I'm going to be honest, he played 34% of the snaps, and I don't even remember him being in the game. So that's not a good sign. So long story short is that, certainly with some injuries and other things, the Bengals have struggled. But when the Bengals have 10 defensive players with PFF grades below 60 and 8 of them are on your defensive line, I think it gives you a pretty clear indication of where the weak point is on this defense. And you're going into a game with Baltimore and Derrick Henry coming off a almost 200-yard performance, including breaking an 87-yard touchdown run. Like, Derrick Henry's hard to tackle, and this team hasn't been great at tackling.
That's right, and it's certainly a big worry going into the game this weekend against the Ravens. But the last person I want to talk to on the defense, which is going to be a perfect segue into our last segment here, is Jordan Battle. I know it's a guy a lot of people are asking for, banging the table for, to get him off the sideline, get him off the bench, get him on the field, because what we've seen from Von Bell and Geno Stone has not been enough. But I guess you could say we got some answers on that front from Lou Anarumo this weekend, but it left me with more questions than that, in all honesty. Lou Anarumo was asked by Ben Baby earlier this week about Jordan Battle's limited snaps, and Lou said when he came in this offseason, he just started off a little bit slow in training camp for whatever reason. He has progressed as we've gotten along, so if he continues on that upward trend, then we'll work him in there. Certainly seems intriguing to me for a defense that hasn't looked good really at any level so far this year, still holding grudges from June or July when we're in September, October with a guy that could probably help this defense. We saw him last year contribute at an unbelievable rate, starting down the stretch most of the end of the season last year for the Bengals defense, a guy that they obviously trusted a ton to be a key player in the defense as a rookie last year. And then this year, we don't even see him on the field at all. I understand making guys earn their spots, and if he came into training camp and Von Bell beat him out, then that's fine and dandy. Von Bell should have started week 1, but at some point I see these safeties play every single week, and I just cannot imagine that Jordan Bell would not help us out.
Yeah, it's really it's hard to know, and I'm not going to sit here and act like I know what happens at practice and
right,
where things are coming in. Interesting that they said that he was slow in training camp, and I don't know if that means he came in out of shape, and maybe this is like punishment for him coming into the off season and preseason out of shape. I don't know. Could Jordan Battle help this defense? Maybe, probably, but the thing that we've talked about in the past that is interesting is that Jordan Battle was the top-ranked strong safety against the run last year in all of the NFL. And now this defense, who has struggled all year long against the run game, is choosing not to utilize him at all. And so, listen, if it's disciplinary, you got to do what you got to do. And I'm not here to question that. We've talked enough about on Chatterbox Reds about accountability. So I don't want to get too much into that. If it's disciplinary and all of that, then so be it. But he played 1 snap this week, Jacob.
That's 3 snaps on the year.
One
correct?
snap. Yeah, I think he's actually at 2.
Oh, is it 2?
I can
Great.
double check.
Even better.
Either way, not many. And again, I don't know a real reason. And Lou, who's typically pretty transparent, kind of gave a non-answer in my eyes. I wish it was a little bit more detailed about what's going on. Says he's getting better every week in practice, though. So that's a good thing.
Take that, yeah.
And it's, he said we see him in a position where I feel like he's ready to go, and the rest of the staff does. but he's certainly making strides towards that. Like, I guess it's just a question of what's the plan once he is to that point too, right? Like,
Right.
does that mean Geno Stone plays less snaps? Does it mean Von Bell is playing less snaps? I don't know. I saw Geno Stone make 2 pretty good defensive plays against the run game in that first drive.
Yeah.
So maybe he's making improvements. That would certainly be a nice development here. I think it's certainly something to monitor for the rest of the year, and certainly in the next couple weeks. If Lou Anarumo is willing to bench or put Cam Taylor-Britt into a rotation because he's given up completions to Deontay Johnson and Xavier Leggett, and then we go out against the Ravens this week and we're not able to tackle Derrick Henry, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Lou Anarumo and whether or not he actually is about holding these guys accountable.
Right, and I think that's the biggest question as we go into the next week of the season. Do we have any answers? I feel like after getting the first win of the season, I'm just left with more questions. I felt like the Bengals proved over this weekend that they just are exactly what I thought they were. They're a dominant offense with a great quarterback, a really exciting O-line, an exciting run game, some great weapons, and then a whole lot of crossing your fingers and praying on defense. I was really hoping to have some answers to my questions and worries this weekend, but I really didn't get any, and that's not a great place to be going into a matchup with the Ravens, where talking all throughout the offseason, we said these first 4 weeks, obviously Kansas City mixed in there, but we said these first 4 weeks were a perfect runway for the season with New England, Carolina, and Washington all in there. 2 of those games at home, we thought, hey, the Bengals are going to be able to get these wheels rolling, get off the ground a little bit going into that Baltimore game, and that certainly hasn't been the case. I feel like this is what I hoped the Bengals looked like in week 1, and then we had time to grow and improve. And now I feel like we've grown and improved to the point where I hoped they were at the beginning of the season, which I don't think is necessarily good enough to beat the Ravens. Certainly not the version of the Ravens we saw go out there and dominate the Bills, but we've also seen versions of that team nearly blow a 20-point lead to the Cowboys and blow a lead to a pretty bad Raiders team. So who knows what to expect from them? And honestly, at this point, I guess the crux of what I'm trying to say here is who knows what to expect from us as an entire team?
Well, I guess I would argue that's your answer. You said we don't have any answers.
No, you're right. You're right.
The answer is that we're just not very good defensively. Right? Like,
I guess I just don't want that to be an answer, Craig.
I listen. There's a lot of things I don't want to be true, but if they are, Jacob.
You're right. I mean, you're right.
I think it comes down to the fact that, you know, the answer is that this offense is going to have to be superb, as it has shown it can be through the first 4 weeks, or at least the last 3, I should say. I'm not really sure that we saw a superb offense against New England, but the fact of the matter is that this defense has holes, and there are key injuries along that defensive front that, quite frankly, are certainly going to put a dent in the defense's ability to improve. I think the real question is how quickly is Trey Hendrickson going to be back? You know, the MRI on his neck revealed that there was no nerve damage, which is positive. So, you know, at this point, it's just a pain tolerance thing, and we'll see how long that keeps him out. I haven't actually seen a simulated. I don't know if we'll see a simulated injury report for today or not. I think they normally do on Tuesdays, but
I looked before we got on and couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't see one yet. You know, so I don't know what the expectation is there for Trey Hendrickson. Obviously, we still have the injuries on the interior of that defensive line as well. Look, this is a team that has some pieces that feel like they should be better than they are. And to your point, that maybe leads you to asking some questions. But I think 4 weeks into a season, we have to just tell ourselves that we've seen enough to know what we are. And if something changes, then great. Maybe that's Lou Anarumo's scheme. Maybe that's certain guys stepping up into roles that maybe they weren't executing on before. But right now, I think the answer is exactly that. It's just this Bengals defense is what they are. And this offense is exactly what it is too. So, you know, you've got one really good answer and you've got one not so great answer.
Which I guess is better than places we've been in the weeks prior here on Chatterbox Bengals. So I'll take the baby steps. Maybe by week 8, we'll be encouraged by the defense. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But that's going to be it for us tonight. Go for it.
The other answer we have, not that we're going to spend any time on this, but we have an answer in the punting battle.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Forgot to mention that.
So Brad Robbins officially released today. I know a lot of people in the chat were very concerned about what was going to go on with the punter battle.
Freaking out.
Rico. Interesting stat. Rico, only 9 punts on the year, so he doesn't actually qualify for NFL rankings, which is interesting. But if he did, his 58.4 yard average and 49.7 yard net would lead both categories, but they would both also be NFL records.
Wow.
Single season record. 53.1 yards per punt. I mentioned Rico 58.4 right now. Net 46.0. Rico now at 49.7. So small sample size, but an interesting development on the punter front. Brad Robbins released today. Certainly, wish him well and appreciate his service last year. But I think this is a case of Ryan Rico really coming out and earning this job over the last 4 weeks. I don't recall off the top of my head a scenario where we've seen him have to finesse a ball yet, though.
That's true.
So that was the one question for him coming in was, can he take a punt from the 50 and land it inside the 10? We'll see. But he can take a punt from the 20 and land it inside the 10. We've seen that much. So we do have that answer. And that is certainly nice to know. And again, leaves a roster spot open for the Bengals to do whatever they're going to do.
Yeah, it just shows you how fickle it is drafting special teamers. Obviously hit on Evan McPherson, but haven't hit on one outside of that since. Missed on Robbins, obviously, having to cut him now still under his rookie contract after taking him in the 6th round. And then Rico signed off the street during training camp, not on a single roster. We had Austin McNamara and Brad Robbins battling for the job here, and then we signed Rico off the street, and he ends up winning the job. So that just goes to show you that there might always be someone out there. When you have a kicker missing field goals or whatever, and you say, oh, there's no better options. There might be. So don't let your owners or coaches off that easy. But before we get out of here tonight, it is a big week for Chatterbox Bengals, jam-packed week. Obviously here tonight, and it'll be available in podcast form shortly after we log off here. And then tomorrow, we're going to have a special interview releasing tomorrow night at about 7 o'clock at night. We're going to have Gridiron Grading from Twitter on the show to talk about the Bengals drafts over the last few years, just how bad it's been defensively and how it compares to other teams that are continuing to vie for a Super Bowl. It's going to be a super interesting conversation, and I think answer a lot of questions as to why the defense is the way it is now and how it's not incredibly unexpected, which makes it just that much more hard to swallow. So a super exciting conversation coming tomorrow for you guys on all Chatterbox Sports channels. And then Thursday night, we'll be live from Champions Grill on the West Side, like we always are, 7 p.m. every other Thursday. We'll be back for the 3rd iteration of the show, previewing Week 5. Cannot wait to see you guys there. Thanks to everyone who's been coming out. Thanks to everyone who comes out. And as always, it'll be streamed on YouTube as well. So if you can't make it, make sure you tune in from there. Craig, before we get out of here, anything else you'd like to add?
That's everything.
Sounds good. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. That's going to do it for this episode of Chatterbox Bengals. We'll catch you guys next time.